I was gonna rip his heart out, I'm the best ever. I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been. There's no one can stop me. Lynx is a conqueror, no, I'm Alexander, he's no Alexander. I'm the best ever, there's never been anybody ruthless. I'm Sonny Liston, I'm Jack Dempsey, there's no one like me. I'm from their claw, there's no one that can match me. My style is impetuous, my defense is impregnable, and I'm just ferocious. I want your heart, I want to eat his children. Praise be to Allah.
Welcome back to my weekly podcast called Bout the Ropes here on Keep It Real Boxing. I am your host, Cypherbox, and let's get into it. The main topic for this week, let's talk about that welterweight division. Listen, this weekend, a big fight was announced. It's Manny Pacquiao versus Keith Thurman. Manny Pacquiao is the WBA regular champion, and Keith Thurman, of course, is the WBA super champion at welterweight. Also, in the recent weeks, we've heard that Errol Spence Jr. is going to face Shawn Porter. That's a unification fight there for the IBF and WBC belts. I don't think a date or a venue's been announced just yet, but they've been talking like August, September. Unless I've missed some news, over the last week or so, I don't think they've announced dates and venues for that fight between Spence and Porter, of course. Which of course means that Terence Crawford once again has been left out in the cold. Okay, we've all been craving that fight, Spence versus Crawford, who's the best one out of them, etc. and stuff like that. But you know what? I touched on this last week and I said we weren't going to see this fight anytime soon. And you know what? I will go into it again. But unfortunately for us boxing fans, the one fight that we want to see out of the welterweight division, we're not going to get to see anytime soon anyway. Aww. But of course, don't be too upset by that because we are getting some action in the welterweight division. Like I said, Manny Pacquiao versus Keith Thurman July 20th. And we're still waiting on a date and venue for Errol Spence Jr. versus Shawn Porter. Now look, I did a review of the welterweight division last year, and in that review I did say that, I don't see why Spence can't just go over to ESPN for one fight and one fight only. If he's that confident he can take that WBO belt off Terence Crawford, then take it. Take that belt, add it to your IBF belt, bring it back over to PBC, Showtime and Fox, and on those platforms, let's have a welterweight tournament and find out who is the best welterweight on the planet. Now, of course, with that comes a risk. What if Terence Crawford wins? Then you lose a belt. PBC lose a belt to Top Rank and Bob Arum, ESPN, and of course Terence Crawford. So there's always that element of risk involved in that fight. In doing that, what I suggested. However, it would appear that PBC and Al Heyman are going to kind of do things a little bit differently. Now, last week I played you some audio from Spence where Spence said that, you know what, I'm going to clean up the division on my side, meaning take the belt off Thurman, take the belt off, what's-his-face, Shawn Porter. If you can get fights Pacquiao and Garcia, fine, clean up those divisions. And then he said, then we won't be talking about no 50-50 and walked off. Like I said, it's about the money, guys, yeah? And unfortunately for Bob Arum, Top Rank, and Terence Crawford, PBC control the welterweight division. They have the majority of the belts on their side, and obviously the elite level fighters in that division on their side. So they're going to position themselves, obviously, clearly in a position where they could turn around and win all those fights, do a little mini tournament, and then go back to Crawford and say, well, you're no longer, you're not the A side here, I'm the A side, look what I've done. And by the way, you know what, the split 60-40, 70-30 or whatever, and give him an A-side deal, a B-side deal for Terence Crawford, that is anyway. And you can see that's what they're trying to do. So we're seeing the beginnings of what we want to call this little mini tournament on the PBC side when it comes to the welterweights. Look, we've got Manny Pacquiao versus Keith Thurman, and we've got Shawn Porter versus Errol Spence Jr. Now the winner, you would assume the winner out of those two fights would fight each other. Right? A lot of people are still a little bit frustrated. A lot of people still giving Keith Thurman a lot of stick, etc. Look, what do I think about his fight against Manny Pacquiao? Look, I think it's a really good fight. Right? I've got no problems with it whatsoever. Yes, all right, we all want to see Crawford versus Spence. But at the same time, you know what? Spencer Crawford still got to prove himself at welterweight. And a lot of people are going to disagree with what I have to say here, but they haven't proven themselves at welterweight yet, in my opinion. All right? They've still got a lot to do. And I'm going to go through their records and stuff like that and talk about their most notable wins of all these top welterweights, including Terence Crawford, not just the PBC side of fighters. But look, end of the day, I think it's a great fight. I think it's a good fight. I think it's going to be an exciting fight. It'll be an enjoyable fight. The question is, which version of Keith Thurman is going to come out against Manny Pacquiao? Right, that is the question really here, right? Because let's face it, he had a 2-year layoff, you know, multiple injuries, got married, all that sort of stuff. His return to the ring was delayed by what, another 6, 7, 8 months or whatever it was. So he's been out of action for a long time. He did come back against Josito Lopez. A lot of people gave Keith Thurman a lot of criticism for all that fight. Me personally, I've still got to go back and watch it again because it's been a while since obviously I watched it live, and you know, I haven't seen it again since. But look, 2 years off, multiple injuries, wasn't a bad performance from Keith Thurman. I'm sorry, it wasn't. Yeah, I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me. It wasn't. Right, Josito Lopez, that's a tough fight to come back against. Josito Lopez isn't one of those guys. Yeah, look, he's not a top level, elite level fighter at welterweight or anything like that, but he is a tough guy. Yeah, he comes to win, he comes to fight. He doesn't just come to pick up a paycheck. Yeah, he's a game opponent, and I knew it was going to be a bit of a tough fight. Yeah, and I was actually shocked that, you know, Thurman was having his comeback fight against Lopez, because you know what, that's a dangerous fight, you know, especially when you've been off for 2 years. Keith Thurman, the movement was there, you know, he boxed well at times. Yeah, there were moments where he was probably exposed and caught and pressured and even hurt by Lopez, but like I said, 2-year layoff, multiple injuries, your first fight back against a game opponent like Josito Lopez, not a bad result. The question is now, what is the version we're going to see of Keith Thurman going forward? You know, the ring rust has definitely been knocked off. You can't say that ring rust hasn't been knocked off. You know, if we see the version of Keith Thurman that we've seen, you know, like he did when he fought Danny Garcia and Shawn Porter, I would favour that version of Keith Thurman. If we see a similar version like we did against Josito Lopez, then I would probably favour Manny Pacquiao in that situation. But however, let's talk about Manny Pacquiao. You know, a lot of people are praising Manny Pacquiao. Don't get me wrong, Manny Pacquiao is a fantastic fighter, yeah? He is a brilliant fighter. He's a legend. He's accomplished so much in the sport. But Manny Pacquiao has also got old. Yeah, I have not been impressed. When he fought against Lucas Matisse, you know, he's fought a walking, talking punch bag. Kind of like he did when he fought Brandon Rios years ago, right? It was a hand-picked opponent to make him look good, and that's exactly what he did, and pick up, you know what, an interim belt, which is that regular belt that he's holding at the moment, right? Even against Broner, he was lunging into punches, falling into punches, you know, the accuracy, you know, the footwork, the hand speed, the speed of his feet, you know what I mean? It's not there anymore. He has lost a couple of steps. Yeah, he's not as quick and nimble as he used to be. Let's be honest, yeah, and he's not as accurate as he used to be as well. So, you know, can that version of Manny Pacquiao still beat the version of Keith Thurman that we saw against Josito Lopez? We'll have to wait and see. It's an intriguing fight. It's an interesting fight. It's to see, you know, Keith Thurman, who was considered the #1 at welterweight once upon a time. Interesting to see, you know, what has he still got left? Can we see that old Keith Thurman come back? And also, you know, is this a last hurrah for Manny Pacquiao? Can Manny Pacquiao, you know, turn back the clock and put on one of those great performances we've seen of him in the past? Because, you know, to be honest with you, I didn't think the fight against Broner was particularly great. I don't think his performance against Broner was particularly great. I just think Broner was so bad that, you know what, it made Pacquiao look good. So it's an interesting fight, it's an intriguing fight, and you know what, but I'm looking forward to it. I am looking forward to it. So what about Spence versus Porter? IBF, WBC titles on the line, unification fight. Look, good fight, I like it. I think it's going to be an entertaining fight. I hope it is anyway. Look, I heavily favour Spence when it comes to this one. I mean, he's got all the advantages, you know, 5'9" and 9.5 inches tall. He's got a reach of 72, and then if you look at Shawn Porter, you know, Shawn Porter's 5'7" and he has a reach of 69.5 inches. I think, you know, Spence is naturally the bigger, stronger guy in my opinion. He showed he's got a lot more to his game when it comes to the whole Mikey Garcia fight, you know, but at the same time, Mikey Garcia was coming up 2 weight classes. Look, a lot of people want to give Spence credit for that. I'm not going to give credit to Spence for beating a guy who was 2 weight classes below him and half his size. Personally, look, that's just how it is. I didn't give credit to Triple G when he beat Kell Brook. I didn't give credit to Canelo when he beat Amir Khan. Lomachenko, you know, when he beat Rigondeaux. I did rebuttal a lot any excuses that Rigondeaux fans could come up with, but I still didn't give him credit. And to be fair, Lomachenko didn't really give himself that much credit for his victory over Rigondeaux. His team did, but he didn't. He's like, look, the guy's 2 weight classes below me. Why am I going to brag about that for? Alright, but the reason that fight happened, let's be honest, was because Rigondeaux was pushing it and talking a lot of trash, so the fight happened. But I'm not going to give credit to these guys who are pulling fighters up 2 weight classes or accepting challenges from guys who are down below them by 1 or 2 weight classes, because naturally the bigger guy you always expect to win. And in this situation, I think the same thing. You know, I think, you know, Spence is going to be too much. He's going to have too much of an arsenal. Porter likes to lean and bully and you know, jump into his punches. He does that whole bouncing on his feet and then goes straight into it. And I think if, you know, Spence can time it right, and he can time his punches right, you know, I think he'll get Porter out of there within maybe 7, 8, maybe 9 rounds. But it's still a good fight, and you know what, I'm glad it's happening, and you know, we're going to see some movement in the welterweight division finally. So where does that leave that other PBC welterweight, Danny Garcia? Of course, you know, Danny's got no belt, no championship belts at the moment. I think he's ranked #1 with the WBC at the moment. Look, Danny's kind of in limbo. Like, he had his fight against Adrian Granados. Look, yeah, it looked impressive, but against a guy who was way smaller than him. Let's be honest. Again, one of those situations where you're fighting the smaller guy, the bigger guy is going to win. So it looked impressive, yeah. A hand-picked opponent to make himself look impressive and keep himself in contention for titles. You know, what happens with Danny next? I don't know. You know, I'm hearing rumblings, perhaps Terence Crawford versus Danny Garcia, perhaps. Look, I know Kell Brook came out recently, you know, after the Amir Khan fight, saying that he would be happy to take on Terence Crawford next, you know, and that's a potential fight, and they've made it quite clear that if that fight happens, that's top ranked side, Terence Crawford's team as well. I think his manager Bo Mack turned around and said that, well, if that fight happens, we're the champions, so he's coming to us in the US. However, when you look at the rankings, Kell Brook is he's currently ranked at 154 pounds. That's the junior middleweight division. His name's not propping up anywhere in the rankings for the welterweight division. He's ranked #3 by the WBC at 154, ranked #1 by the WBA, ranked #4 by the IBF, and he's ranked #3 by the WBO, and that's all in the 154 pound division. So I don't know whether Kell's gonna come down to 147 pound. I don't know how serious he was about that. He himself keeps saying it. You know, in the past, he recently just said, though, he didn't have a problem with it. That was making weight, sorry, for welterweight. You know, Eddie Hearn has come out, you know, recently as well, said that, you know, when he was asked the question, well, we have to talk about that because he does have difficulty making 147 pounds. So I don't know what's going to happen with Kell Brook, or whether that fight's going to materialise when it comes to Terence Crawford. But I'm hearing rumblings. You know, I'm seeing a lot of videos out there by the bigger channels who've got, you know, their connections and their links, saying that, you know, potentially, you know, Bob Arum and Al Heyman could be setting up Terence Crawford versus Danny Garcia. And if that is true, then that's an interesting fight. It keeps Danny in... It gives Danny a title shot, and it keeps Terence Crawford busy. But we'll have to wait and watch the space. But it'll be interesting to see who Crawford fights next. Whether that's true, whether he gets a shot at a PBC fighter like Danny Garcia, who hasn't got a belt. Of course, sending Danny Garcia across to ESPN to fight Crawford, and if he can pick that belt up and return with it, you know, they've got, you know, PBC have got the full control of the welterweight division then. But at the same time, if Kell Brook is really serious about fighting at 147 and taking on Terence Crawford, we could potentially see that fight as well. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. Look, Terence Crawford, unfortunately, yeah, I have to agree with Errol Spence Jr. He's on the wrong side. You know, Top Rank and Bob Arum don't have enough fighters, or enough fighters of, you know, of the right pedigree to keep feeding Terence Crawford. And that's where the frustration, that's where Bob Arum's frustration is coming out from, because he knows he hasn't got fighters to keep Terence Crawford busy, you know, high quality opponents to keep him busy. So like I said, it'll be interesting to see what comes out of all of this, yeah. Okay, so I've heard a lot of debates and a lot of videos and a lot of talk and reading comments and stuff like that where a lot of people are talking about who's the #1 welterweight, who's the best welterweight in the world right now. Okay, and the only way we're going to answer that question and get deep into that is to actually look at the top welterweights records. So I've kind of done a list for Thurman, Porter, Garcia, Spence and Crawford in terms of their records at welterweight. Alright, and who's the best one? Alright, I'm not including Manny Pacquiao in there because Manny Pacquiao definitely has the best record. We know that. The man's a legend, yeah, alright? 8th division world champion, you know, he's had numerous fights against numerous top opponents. Most of those opponents, of course, have now retired, but he's still got the best record. So we can't really include Manny Pacquiao, you know, he's a legend in his own right. He's when it comes to his record, he's in a league of his own compared to these other welterweights, these younger welterweights. And that's what we're going to focus in on, is these young, current welterweight champions and contenders, right? Top level ones. So Thurman, Porter, Garcia, Spence, and of course, Terence, Crawford. So let's look at Keith Thurman. Let's start off with him, right? He's got a record of 29 fights, 22 KOs, no losses, alright? His most notable victories have come against Danny Garcia, of course, and Shawn Porter. You know, he's fought Josito Lopez recently, Robert Guerrero, Luis Collazo, Bundu, Julio Diaz, and Soto Corrales, right? Those are probably his most notable victories when it comes to his record, alright? And when it comes to titles, of course, Keith Thurman currently holding the WBA's Super Welterweight Championship belt and was the former WBC champion. Vacated the belt because of his inactivity. Some people believe the WBC actually stripped him. Believe whichever one you want, but he did hold that belt at one time. Now let's look at Shawn Porter's record. 30 wins, 17 of those by KOs, 2 losses and 1 draw. Okay, and let's look at his most notable wins, right? So Danny Garcia most recently for that WBC belt, which he's holding. Andre Berto, he's fought Thurman but lost to Thurman. Beat Broner, lost to Kell Brook, that's when he was the IBF champion. Fought Devin Alexander, and he fought Julio Diaz twice. The first fight was a draw and then he won the rematch, of course. And when it comes to titles, like I already just stated to you, he's currently the WBC champion and the former IBF champion at welterweight. Let's move on to Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia, 35 wins, 21 KOs, 2 losses, which came to Porter and Thurman, of course. You look at his record, his last fight was against Granados. You know, I don't know how much credit I can give him for that. His fight against Porter for the vacant WBC belt, which he lost. You know, he fought Brandon Rios before that, which he won. He fought Thurman again, which he lost. Samuel Vargas before that. He fought Robert Guerrero, and I think the fight against Robert Guerrero was the one where he won the WBC belt. Am I right? Yeah, I think that was the fight. Before that, he fought Paulie Malignaggi, and then obviously before that, at a catchweight, he fought Lamont Peterson. So I don't know whether you can count that into his welterweight record. Of course, Danny was at 140, unified champion at 140, so he had a lot of success at that weight. But probably hasn't done as well at welterweight when moving up into welterweight, and sometimes that's where you got to kind of see that there's that gap between the two divisions. If you're coming from 140 to 147, in terms of level of competition and the quality of opponent, it's much better at welterweight. So that kind of shows with Danny that he had a lot of success at 140, and then when he moved up to 147, he's not done as well, you know, because the competition's better, of course. But you know what I mean? He had that WBC welterweight title before losing it to Keith Thurman. He did get another chance to fight for the vacant WBC belt against Shawn Porter, but lost that as well. And those are his only 2 losses throughout his career so far. So let's look at Errol Spence Jr. 25 wins, 21 KOs, no losses, no draws, yeah? Okay, let's look at his most notable wins, all right? The last one was against Mikey Garcia, but like I said, I'm not giving him all that credit for that fight. Yeah, look, he showed us a lot of things in there, Spence, that he can do, but it was against a guy who was coming up 2 weight classes. Yeah, a lot of people are going to say, well, that's Mikey's fault. He chose to come up 2 weight classes, but at the same time, Spence gets to say yes or no to that fight, and he said yes. So yeah, I can be critical of Spence when it comes to that victory. Lamont Peterson before that, former world champion at 140, of course. Kell Brook, former world champion, you know, welterweight champion, IBF champion. Leonard Bundu, and then Chris Algieri, who was world champion at when he beat Prodnikov at what was it, at 140, wasn't it? So those are his most notable wins. Yeah, those are his most notable wins out of those 25 wins, in my opinion. And he's currently the IBF champion himself, and a lot of people are holding Errol Spence Jr. up as the #1 welterweight in the world. When you look at his record, and I can only pick out 5 names that are considered his most notable wins, I don't know whether you could actually turn around and say Spence is the #1 welterweight based on his record. Sorry, that's just me putting it out there. I know a lot of people aren't going to be happy with me on that one. Spence fans are going to, you know, they're going to hate me for this, but that's just the way I see it. So let's move on to Terence Crawford. Now, the argument right now amongst boxing fans is who's the best welterweight, Terence Crawford or Errol Spence Jr., right? But when you look at Crawford's record at welterweight, he's only just begun at welterweight. A lot of success at 135 and 140, of course. But he's had 3 fights at welterweight. One was against Horn, that Jeff Horn fight, the first fight at welterweight where he picked up the WBO belt. Then Jose Benavidez, and recently Amir Khan. That's it, you know. So again, this is what I was talking about at the beginning of this podcast, where I said Spence and Crawford have still got a lot to do, in my opinion, and prove when it comes to the welterweight division. Don't get me wrong, they've all got a bit to prove, but I think out of the 5 that I'm talking about here, I think those 2 still got a lot of work to do, in my opinion. When you look at the records, you know, the information on BoxRec doesn't lie. So based on the information that I've just given you, when you go through their records and you pick out the most notable victories, for me, the best record out of all those welterweights I just spoke about is Keith Thurman. Sorry, WBA champion, super welterweight champion, former WBC champion, beat Danny Garcia, beat Shawn Porter. You know, he's had fights against the likes of Lopez Guerrero. You know, he's got better names on his record, in my opinion. Yeah, that's just looking at his record. After that, I think even with losses on his record, I think it's Shawn Porter. He's gone up against Danny Garcia, Berto, Thurman, Broner, Brook, Malignaggi, Alexander, you know, Diaz. So for me, his record is #2 after Keith Thurman. After that, I think I have to go with Danny Garcia. He's fought Porter, he's fought Thurman. You know, he's had fights against the likes of Malignaggi, Guerrero. He's fought Rios as well. So probably not the best version of Rios, let's be honest with you. So I'll probably, I can see people arguing that one with me. I can understand it. Remember, this is just subjective. This is my opinion based on what I'm seeing. I'm not saying you have to agree with me on this. You're allowed to have your own opinions, and I would love to hear them, of course. And he fought that catchweight against Peterson, but that was a close fight as well. But just looking at the names at his record, I think he's got the next best record after that. I think when you go back and look at Spence's record, like I said, I think Spence has still got a lot of work to do. Yes, he's fought likes of Mikey Garcia, Peterson, Brook, you know, Bundu shows up, Algieri shows up as well. But again, you know, I still feel, you know, he hasn't done enough at welterweight yet, you know. And yeah, but you got to remember, he's had the shorter career at welterweight compared to the other 3 names I've just mentioned, but I still think he sits in that 4th place. And definitely Terence Crawford's got a lot of work to do at welterweight. I mean, he's had 3 fights, so he's probably got the worst record out of them. We're not that saying he's the worst fighter, but when you look at on paper who has the better record, Terence Crawford, or who has the worst record, Terence Crawford is in last position, and he's got a lot of work to do. And the thing with Terence Crawford is, like I said, Bob Arum doesn't have those opponents to feed to him. So how quickly does that improve as well? That's the other thing, you know. Take that fight with Kell Brook, that would help him. If he can make a fight with Danny Garcia, from the rumblings that I'm hearing and the rumours, you know, that would help his situation as well. So that's the way I see their records. Now, based on that, you know, a lot of people are talking about who's the #1 welterweight. And you know what? In my opinion, the #1 welterweight in the sport right now is none of them. Yep, you heard me right. None of them, none of these names that I've just mentioned, or the records that I've just spoken about, makes them the #1 welterweight. Alright, I said this from day one when I started this channel. I don't care about pound for pound. I don't waste my time with pound for pound. I think pound for pound is an absolute complete waste of time. First of all, I don't think there are any pound for pound fighters in boxing. Yeah, all right. Second of all, yeah, for me, it's a marketing tool and a gimmick used by promoters to miseducate the ignorant boxing fan, the casual boxing fans especially. But at the same time, the way I look at it is I'm all about undisputed champions. I've said that from day one when it comes to the channel. That's all I care about. I want to see undisputed champions. You know, I don't care, you know, about pound for pound. Oh, can he go to this division or that division? He could do it in every division. No, I don't care about that. I care about what they're doing in their current division. Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, that's all I care about. Undisputed champions. Yeah. And we do not have an undisputed welterweight champion as of yet. And until we do, we don't have a #1 welterweight. Same with any division, and that applies to any division: heavyweight, light heavyweight, cruiserweight, whatever. It applies to all the divisions. We do not have a #1 until we see one king sitting on the throne. And at the moment, we've got what? 1, 2, 3, 4 champions in this division. Right? 4 kings claiming that they're #1. Well, you can claim it as much as you want. You've got to prove it and back it up. And the only way you're going to do that is by fighting each other and becoming undisputed champion. Simple as that. So all these people who have these arguments out there who say, no, Spence is #1, Crawford's #1, Keith's the bum, Keith's scared, and all this sort of stuff, and Shawn Porter's this and Shawn Porter's that, Danny's whatever your opinion is. Simple fact of the matter is, until there's an undisputed champion, there isn't a #1 welterweight in the sport of boxing. And that applies to every other division as well. That's the way I see it. Look, like I said before, it's great to see that some of these fights are being made. We're seeing Pacquiao versus Thurman coming up July 20th. We're still waiting on a date, from what I understand, for Spence versus Porter. So it's great to see that. Hopefully, if the rumours are true, we'll see Garcia versus Terence Crawford. But if I'm honest with you, I don't see Terence Crawford taking on any of the champions at PBC, on the PBC stable, anytime soon, simply because of the politics and the business of the sport. I think Al Heyman's going to keep that all in-house at the moment. He's going to do a little tournament that's going to go in like they're going to fight each other, and then eventually one of them is going to become the unified champion at welterweight, and then they will progress with negotiations with Terence Crawford. For Terence Crawford, unfortunately, hopefully he gets that Danny Garcia fight. That'll keep him busy, and then if he can line up even the Kell Brook fight, but who else he fights, we'll have to wait and see. But the options are limited for Terence Crawford, but that's down to his promoter. His promoter needs to do his job and stop spatting out and making these comments. Oh, it's Al Heyman's fault, and making comments. Oh, he's telling his fighter don't listen to the white guys and all this nonsense. That's not going to help things. You're just creating more roadblocks, in my opinion. So I think Bob Arum needs to kind of change his approach a little bit, in my opinion. But like I said, we're not going to see Terence Crawford against any of the champions over on PBC just yet, in my opinion. I think they're going to unify and fight each other and unify the division that way. And then once one of them's got all the belts, then they will progress to make a fight with Terence Crawford. That's just the way I see it. So it's going to be a while until we see Terence Crawford take on one of those boys, in my opinion. Okay, so kinda want to touch on the super welterweight or junior middleweight division. That's 154 pounds, especially on the back of Julian J-Rock Williams' victory over Jarrett Hurd this weekend. Now, Jarrett Hurd was holding the WBA, IBF and IBO belts. He lost that to Julian Williams in a dominant performance by J-Rock. Really fought well. I kind of want to do a separate video and give my thoughts on that. However, look, it's a good division. Yeah, a lot of people, there's some people who aren't giving it credit and stuff like that. I think what's great about this division is that everyone's fighting each other. All right, we've got a rematch with Tony Harrison versus Jermell Charlo coming up. Obviously, Jermell Charlo lost the last fight. We've seen these guys fight Austin Trout. We saw Jarrett Hurd fight Arisander Lara last year, which I felt was the fight of the year, just in my opinion. We've seen J-Rock fight, Jarrett Hurd recently, this weekend. So these guys are mixing it up with each other, and that's what I like about this division. All right, you got Jaime Munguia as well, who's the WBO champion. So let me give you the list of the champions first of all. So the WBC champion currently at the moment is Tony Harrison. He's due to have a rematch with Jermell Charlo next month. I think it's June 23rd? I think it's June 23rd. Alright, we've got Julian Williams, who's now the newly crowned WBA and IBF champion. And then you've got Jaime Munguia, who's got the WBO belt, who's on Golden Boy and over there on the Zone at the moment. And then you've got the likes of Kell Brook, who's ranked in the division. You've got Erislandi Lara, obviously Jermell Charlo, who I just mentioned. You've got Trout. You know, there's a good level of competition in this division. And I think, you know what, one thing, like I said, what I like about this division, that they're mixing it up. They are fighting each other. Unlike the heavyweight division, you know, we're starting to see that a little bit at welterweight. You know, I want to start seeing that in the other divisions like light heavyweight. There's so many potential great fights in all the divisions, but we're not seeing enough for it like in these top elite level well-known boxers. So, you know, just kind of shout out to that division as a whole, that they're willing to put it on the line and go up against each other. Look, Jarrett Hurd has recently said he's got a rematch clause in place when it comes to J-Rock Williams, and he looks like he's going to take that, make that rematch happen and take that option. So that'll be interesting to see how the rematch works out. A lot of people were saying that, you know, Jarrett Hurd was a bit of arrogance there involved. You know, he kind of thought he was going to beat Williams quite easily, but you know, Julian Williams, in his opinion, turned around and said that he felt he was going to beat Jarrett Hurd easily, and people had him as an underdog. I think it was a 7-1 underdog. But look, he put on a great performance. It is a really good division, and I like the fact that they're mixing it up. You know, Jarrett Hurd after his win, his close decision win over Erislandi Lara, and for me, I had up to the 11th round, I had them even on points, and then it was that knockdown in, you know, it would have been a draw if it wasn't for that knockdown in the last round where Jarrett Hurd knocked down Erislandi Lara, and I thought, ooh, so that just gives him the edge. So he won it literally by a point for me, but he never wanted to give Erislandi Lara that rematch, which I didn't understand. But most of the time these guys are mixing it up, and you know, it'll be interesting to see what happens going on forward. I don't know, you got to remember Julian Williams, Tony Harrison, Jermell Charlo, Jarrett Hurd, Erislandi Lara, again all PBC fighters, and you got Jaime Munguia on the other side, who won his last fight, and if I'm right, it was a majority decision, wasn't it? I think it was a majority decision, yeah it was, against who was it, Hogan, wasn't it, Dennis Hogan. And some people said that they actually felt he lost that fight, and there was a little bit of controversy where Jaime Munguia's management team were hovering around the judges as well when it came to making the decision. I put that video up on my Instagram page. If you're not subscribed to, if you're not following me on Instagram, seriously consider following me on Instagram. I put quite a bit of useful information up there. It's at Keep It Real Boxing. But look, it is a good division. I like the fact that these guys are mixing it up, and hopefully that continues that way. Like I said though, Kell Brook is sitting in, you know, he's ranked in every single one of those sanctioning bodies at 154 pounds. So it'll be interesting to see what Kell Brook does next. Is he going to come back down to 147 fight Terence Crawford like he's already suggested, or is he going to stay at 154? I'm not sure what's going on with Kell Brook, but when you compare him in terms of size and height against these other 154 pounders, you know, he's at a bit of a disadvantage, but at the same time he struggles to make 147. So it's going to be interesting to see where Kell Brook goes from here and how serious he is. Or is Kell Brook going to settle and fight Amir Khan? Because Amir Khan, you know, he's piping up now since he's lost to Terence Crawford, and suddenly he wants that Kell Brook fight. For me, I think that's Kell Brook. For me, that's Amir Khan saying, oh, I'll take that fight, make that money, one and done, and that's it. I'll sail off into the sunset, even though he believes he can still beat the likes of Keith Thurman and Pacquiao and all that sort of stuff. Personally, I think Amir Khan's done. I think he should retire, but hey, it's his decision. You know, end of the day, it's up to him what he wants to do, but I don't think he should continue fighting anymore, but that's just my opinion. But anyway, back to his 154 pounder division. Look, it's a really good division. I like the fact that they're mixing it up. Hopefully that continues, and it'd be interesting to see if we'll see an undisputed champion anytime soon in that division. Let's quickly move on to Canelo Alvarez. Now, this post was put up by Michael Benson on Twitter, and he said when asked about Canelo's next fight, he said Golden Boy's Oscar De La Hoya named 4 potential opponents, saying Gennady Golovkin the 3rd fight, Demetrius Andre, which would be a unification fight and would make, if Canelo could win that, would make him undisputed champion. a fight against Sergey Kovalev at 175 pounds, which he's talked about in the last few months. He said he's happy to do that. Obviously, Kovalev looks like he's going to be fighting his mandatory, which is Anthony Yarde. So it'll have to be after that. And then obviously Callum Smith. Out of all of those 4 fights that I'm looking at right now, I'm not going to lie. Yes, I would like to see the Demetrius Andrade fight, because then we'll see an undisputed champion at middleweight. But if not that fight, then definitely the Callum Smith fight has got me interested. I'm not really interested in a third fight against Triple G. I'm not at all. That fight doesn't excite me at all. It really doesn't. Sorry to say that. You know, the first fight, okay, people could say it could have gone either way. I felt the second fight definitely, you know, Canelo won that fight. For me personally, I'm not interested in seeing the third fight anymore. There's something about that fight, it's missing a spark. You know, when it comes to these big fights we've seen, and you know, when you've watched the sport long enough and you see these big fights and you think, oh, a trilogy would be amazing. This isn't that kind of situation when it comes to me as a boxing fan. I don't feel that energy and that spark to all this urgency to want to see Canelo versus Triple G3. I really don't. So I like to see him fight Demetrius Andrade next and unify the division and become undisputed champion potentially, or even Andrade can beat him and become the undisputed champion, whichever. If not that, then you know, I'd like to see the Callum Smith fight and see how he handles Callum Smith personally. But let me know what you guys think. Of course, notice Billy Joe Saunders isn't on that list. Yeah, Billy Joe Saunders is obviously fighting at 168 pounds. He's now fighting, is it for the vacant WBO belt? Because Ramirez is, what his name, has given up the WBO belt now, hasn't he? So notice that Billy Joe Saunders' name was not on that list. Interesting.
Hi, this is Tyson Fury, aka the Gypsy King. I just want to say a special message to the WBC, who supported me in my comeback and been very fair with me over the years. Hi Pepe, hi Mauricio. I recently saw your quote about fighting for the interim title against Dillian Whyte, and I'm very thankful for the opportunity. But what I suggest is, because I beat Deontay Wilder, and we all know what happened, I didn't get the decision, but I still won, and the world knows. I propose that we make me and Dillian Whyte for the WBC Diamond belt, and not the interim belt. And I'll take care of Dillian Whyte and I'll knock him out within 6 rounds. I accept the challenge. Thank you very much. I'll fight Dillian Whyte every day of the week and twice on a Sunday, WBC. Make it for the Diamond belt, not the interim version, and you got a deal. Let's get it on!
Now that was Tyson Fury today, kind of putting it out there that he's happy to fight Dillian Whyte as long as the WBC Diamond belt is up for grabs. Listen, I'm getting sick of the heavyweight division. Yeah, I'm trying not to talk about that division as much as I possibly can, because I'm done with it. I'm done with all the antics, all the politics. If you watch my podcast from last week, you know, if you haven't, go and watch it. I kind of expressed how I feel when it comes to the heavyweight division right now. It's a complete joke. You know, it's all about money, power, egos, and all that sort of stuff. People positioning themselves to, you know, be the dominating force in boxing and stuff like that. Look, like I said, business and politics, yeah, and I'm sick to death of it. I'm tired of talking about it. You know, I've spoken about Dillian Whyte and he's whining and he's crying and he's moaning about 2 or 3 podcasts ago. If you go back and watch the podcast which I titled, the About the Ropes podcast I titled, where I talked about Deontay Wilder turning down the $120 million offer from DAZN. I also talked in that podcast about Dillian Whyte, and he's exactly where he should be when it comes to his mandatory status, yeah, which is he doesn't have one. Simple as that, right? And justifiably, he does. You know, he belongs wherever he is right now. That's where he belongs. Is basically what I said. All right, he's turned down multiple opportunities. He could have fought Kubrat Pulev for the IBF. In the IBF final eliminator out in Bulgaria, turned it down, said that, oh, I'll fight anyone, anywhere, any place, anytime. You know, turned down fights with Anthony Joshua. He criticises Deontay Wilder for turning down his biggest paydays, that he's made Deontay Wilder 4, 5, 6, 8 million, whatever it was. But yet he's turned down his biggest payday to fight Anthony Joshua for all 4 belts that Anthony Joshua holds. So, you know, it's hypocritical what's coming from Dillian Whyte. He's exactly where he should be. He's not crying and moaning to the WBO about the fact that he's the #1 contender there and he should be made the mandatory challenger. He's not moaning that Usyk, if he wins his first fight at heavyweight, he'll become the automatic mandatory challenger, a WBO mandatory challenger to Anthony Joshua's title. Why? You know what I mean? He's in the same position with, technically speaking, he's in the same position with two governing bodies, yeah, the WBC and the WBO. Yet he's crying about the WBC's treatment of him, but he's not crying about the WBO's treatment of him. You see what I mean? They're doing exactly the same thing over there at the WBO. So I talked about it in great lengths, and I broke it all down. If you want to find out what I said, go back over it, because I don't want to repeat everything all over again. But he's exactly where he's supposed to be. Now, obviously, you just saw a video from Tyson Fury saying that, yeah, I'll fight Dillian Whyte, because the WBC are trying to appease Dillian Whyte. I don't see why they shouldn't appease him. They should just move on to the next opponent and offer it to the next opponent. But the next fighter, I mean, yeah, in their rankings. That's how the rulings go. But anyway, they've given him like a counter offer kind of thing to his appeal he made to them a few weeks ago, which is that fight Tyson Fury in a final eliminator for the interim belt. Now, they're making it out like, you know, I've seen bits and bobs of interviews where Eddie Hearn, you know, to the point where I'm not even watching a lot of interviews on the heavyweight division right now. That's how sick and tired I am of it. It's the same bullshit over and over again, right? But I heard that, you know, Dillian Whyte doesn't believe that Tyson would want the fight and all this sort of stuff. Tyson turns around and says, I don't fight in eliminators because I'm the lineal champion of the world. I don't fight in eliminators, I fight champions and all this sort of stuff. But now he's saying he's willing to fight Dillian Whyte for the WBC diamond belt. And Dillian Whyte, you saw in his tweet, which I put up for you there, you know, he says, let's go, let's do it kind of thing. So listen, as far as I'm concerned, until I see names on contracts, until I've heard that people actually signed the contract or official announcements and press conferences have taken place saying that these fights are going to happen, I ain't believing it. There's a lot of hot air in the heavyweight division. Yeah, all these guys are talking the talk. None of them are walking the walk. Yeah, they're all talking. That's it. Yeah, when I see action, I'll believe it. When I see a press conference where I've got Dillian Whyte on one side and Tyson Fury on the other side, and they're saying, oh, I'm going to knock you out, I'm going to do this to you, and you could officially say, here's the date the fight's going to happen, I'm not buying it. You know, even part of me feels like until they step into the ring with each other, I'm not buying it, because you've got enough time to pull out with an injury, yeah, or a so-called injury. That's how much I do not believe in the heavyweight division right now, yeah. Because they're all playing games. I just can't be bothered with it at the moment. Alright? Like I said, tired of the heavyweight division, tired of these heavyweights, tired of Dillian Whyte, and he's moaning and he's complaining. He is exactly where he should be. I proved that in 2 or 3 podcasts ago. Go watch that podcast. I'll try and link it to the end screen annotations of this podcast so you can watch it. Right? But I broke it all down. I did my research. He is exactly where he should be. Right, and it's his fault he's not getting these shots because he keeps turning down final eliminators and stuff like that. He wants to be made a mandatory challenger by the WBC without even fighting a final eliminator. Sorry, you got to fight a final eliminator, mate. And you've had opportunities. You've been given opportunities. You've given numerous opportunities by the WBC. You've been given opportunities by the IBF. You're not crying and moaning about the WBO, even though you're the #1 contender there on the WBO. But you're happy for the WBO to take Alexander Usyk and make him the mandatory challenger if he wins his first fight at heavyweight for Anthony Joshua's title. And I thought he turned around and said, oh, well, you know what, I'm going to turn down the offer to Anthony Joshua and, you know, I'll become the WBO mandatory, and when I do, yeah, then, you know what, there's no rematch, so I could beat him in the first fight and then I can make the stipulations and the rematch clause myself. But I don't see him crying to the WBO and complaining and appealing to the WBO. Why not? See what I mean? It's just all BS from Dillian Whyte. I don't buy his shit either. Alright, and I'm sick of the heavyweight division. Like I said, when I see it's officially announced, then I'll believe it. And even then I probably still won't believe it until they step into the ring and start throwing punches at each other. That's where I'm at with the heavyweight division. And by the way, that diamond belt, the diamond belt which Tyson Fury is going on about, has absolutely no worth whatsoever. It's a bullshit belt. It's a money grab belt. It's a belt that was designed by the WBC, yeah, to be able to charge more sanctioning fees. Basically, it's a belt they use when they make a historic fight between two fighters. It has no significance whatsoever. Yeah, it's not like it's the super champions belt. It still sits underneath Deontay Wilder's WBC heavyweight title, so it has no significance whatsoever. Yeah, so why he's asking for that diamond belt is beyond me, completely beyond me. I don't understand why he's even bringing that up. Yeah, it has no worth whatsoever. It's a joke, that belt. Yeah, and all the boxing commissions have a belt like that, by the way. They all have a belt like that. Yeah, and it's an absolute joke. So why he's asking for it, I have no idea. Yeah, it's ridiculous if you ask me. Okay, so let's finish on something a little bit funny. Tevin Farmer and Gervonta Davis are at it again. Well, should I say Tevin Farmer is? He always seems to get the upper hand on Gervonta Davis. You saw that video I just played for you. I played it for you twice. Where Tevin Farmer put a caption with that video saying, "Look how big this boy is. You will never beat me. You don't even keep up with yourself. You're as big as a house," at Gervonta Davis. Right, and on Instagram he said, "Oi, fat boy, you're looking fat." Yeah, if you go to the Instagram post as well, he says, "Oi, fat boy, hey, fat boy," he calls him. And you can see Gervonta Davis replied, "I will break every bone in your body. On my dead homies, I'm gonna try and kill you when we fight." Listen, these two just need to get it on. I hear Tevin Farmer's deal with DAZN is coming to an end. I think he had a 3 or 4 fight deal or something like that, and it's coming to an end. I don't know whether he's going to re-sign with DAZN, but you know, it would be interesting if Showtime step in, or PBC or someone make him a really big offer just to make that fight with Gervonta Davis. I would love to see it. There'll be plenty of trash talking, a great build-up I think it would be, and you know what, we could finally settle this beef between these two guys. But I thought it was pretty funny. Look, I really would like to see that fight. Hopefully it can materialise at some point soon. But again, you know what? This is the frustration in boxing. There's all these fights we want to see, and they're not happening because of broadcaster deals and all these other things that are getting in the way. And it's starting to get frustrating because it seems to be happening in every single division. Near enough every division. The only one that I give credit to is that 154 division, who are mixing up really well, in my opinion. The other divisions, you know, like I said, we're now only just starting to see some progress in the welterweight division, but that's on the PBC side. It's not going across and making deals with Terence Crawford and stuff like that. So it is frustrating. I would like to see this fight. It is quite funny. Tevin Farmer always gets under the skin of Gervonta Davis. He is the better trash talker in my opinion, no doubt about it. And Davis just gets mad and says, I'm gonna beat you up. But look, let's see the fight. I hope we can get to see that fight. It'll be, you know, I think it'll be a really good fight in my personal opinion. Okay, so that's all I've got for you on this week's episode of Bout the Ropes here on Keep It Real Boxing. Guys, listen, if you're not following me on social media, follow me on social media. On Instagram at Keep It Real Boxing, where I do most of my social media stuff. You can follow me on Twitter as well at Keep It Real Box, and of course on Facebook at Keep It Real Boxing. As always, like, share and subscribe. Until next time, this is Cypherbox reminding you to keep it real.
I was gonna rip his heart out, I'm the best ever. I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been. There's no one can stop me. Lynx is a conqueror, no, I'm Alexander, he's no Alexander. I'm the best ever, there's never been anybody ruthless. I'm Sonny Liston, I'm Jack Dempsey, there's no one like me. I'm from Nairclaw, there's no one that can match me. My style is impetuous, my defense is impregnable, and I'm just ferocious. I want your heart, I wanna eat his children. Praise be to Allah.